I'm taking this head on right now, okay? Short lives matter.
Just was so captivated by Ian's cute, or not Ethan's
Wow,
cute.
what? Plot twist.
Cut the camera.
Got the camera.
And then, welcome back to the Faith Created Podcast, episode 6. Yeah, episode 6. Yeah, so this is the part 2 from last week. I know, we're filming at the same exact time. Yeah, you guys are so distracting over there, girl.
Sorry.
No.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're filming this at the same exact time as,
Literally right after.
Yeah.
We have not moved.
We haven't even turned the camera off.
Nope.
So this is technically part 2. But yeah, we're going to go talk about finding the one. You guys already dropped some heat on that last week, a few seconds ago. But yeah, let's continue on.
Yeah.
Finding the one.
Yeah.
I think a good place to start, since in the last episode we kind of jumped around on, you said that there wasn't the one. I want you to elaborate on that because I want to know what you think from a single perspective. I think it's so important. You said love yourself to know what you want before you get into a relationship. Do you mind sharing some of that?
No, I don't want to share it.
I just think
I'm not here to share my thoughts.
I'm here to keep it to
Because I
myself.
think having the single side before that is so important.
Yeah.
As well.
Oh yeah, 100%. So finding the one is kind of this new ageism term of like, there is one person that God destined for your life, and there's only one person. Mm-hmm. No one else is it, and it's God's timing on when that happens. Mm-hmm. That is just a myth. It is just not true. There's only, I think, 2 or 3 people we've seen that in the Bible, where that actually happened, and one of them was
It's Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve. The second one was it's also Genesis, with Leah, I think. No, not Leah.
Don't know that one.
The one where God basically sent the dude. I think it's Isaac. He sends his messenger person because God told him to send his messenger to that person's town. It might be it's not Sarah. And he goes by the well. This person does exactly what God prophesied and whatever. Let's go to that.
And there's also, what's his name?
I think my phone got lost in the abyss. I have my Bible on my phone today.
There's so many people in Genesis, so many characters. That's kind of hard to remember. Oh, Rachel and Isaac. Maybe it's them. Jacob.
Sorry for the brief.
Jacob.
Brief interruption. What book is it in?
Genesis.
I'm looking for a different one. Just real quick. And then there's Hosea.
Mm-hmm. But
is it Hosea?
I don't know. I thought you said you found it.
It's Hosea. So it's sorry. I'm not talking about the one in Genesis. I'm talking about a different one.
I did find the one.
But Hosea is the one God commanded to go marry a prostitute.
Yes. Yes, that's right. So, yeah, Hosea and then Isaac and Rebecca, where basically God's like, hey, send your servant to this town, and this woman is going to do exactly this thing, and then you will take her from the house and to be married. So there's 3 people out of all the characters in the Bible. There's a lot of characters in the Bible.
There's
like
so many.
And every single one of them, Peter, for example, they all made the choice to marry that one person. Mm-hmm. So, and, Connor puts this really well, too, when he preaches this, is like, if the one existed, well, first off, we know we're all sinners, and we don't always go according to God's will and his plan. Sometimes we mess things up. God is obviously aware of our mess-ups and plans around it, plans of plan B, but if we were to do that with marriage, you just married the wrong person or chose the wrong person, it would mess up the entire line of history. It would mess up everything. Yeah, God's plan would be in disarray. So it's just not possible for there to be a one for everyone. And this is the important part about choice. And you mentioned singleness a little bit. And this is why I think singleness is important, because God gives us the free will. He loves us so much that we get free will. If we have free will in all these other things, why couldn't we have free will with our love choices? You know what I mean?
Yeah. The idea of the one contradicts what God says about free will and how he's given us a choice.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question then.
Yeah.
Since we talked about having sex with someone is a soul tie, what's the difference between that and a soulmate? And do you think soulmates exist? And what's the difference between the one and a soulmate?
I don't think soulmates exist.
No, even if you create a soul tie with them.
I think a soul tie is something created. A soulmate is supposed to be something
It's
that's
destined. Okay.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can call your wife or husband a soulmate.
Yeah.
You know, but the way soulmate is used as there's this one person out there that's exactly like me, and we can match souls. It's like, well, yeah, there's a lot of people that can fit that, actually.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah,
There's a
you
reason
can
I
fit
have
that.
multiple friends. You know, it's because
No, for real. Like,
I don't have just one
if
friend.
I just decide I like boys one day, like,
Yeah, right. Like, Ethan's technically my soulmate. Are we like, we didn't have sex? I mean, you know,
Dude,
sorry to
share
get
that
things
one
weird,
time.
but
Okay.
yeah.
okay, context.
I think you need to provide
Context. We were
Please.
in San Diego and we were coming back from the beach.
We did take
And we had our swimsuits on, and we took my little cousin with us, and Ian and I were in separate showers, and all of a sudden my little cousin goes into his with his bathing suit on.
Of course.
And he was being really freaking weird. He was like putting soap in his hands and he was like splashing it at Ian. And Ian got scared. So naturally he ran to me so I could protect him. So
And we did the same thing. No big deal.
yeah, exactly.
No. Yeah, Ethan, I mean, man, we showered together. We've slept in the same bed together.
It was so cute.
Yeah.
We were up camping in the camper.
bromance.
And we were reading our Bibles, and at the
It was
end of the night
beautiful.
we were like, good night. And then we put our Bibles on the nightstands on the
Oh
side
my
of the
gosh,
beds.
like a
So
little
cute.
couple.
We were like a married couple.
It's amazing.
Oh, I
Yeah.
just the reason why I bring this up, I just think it's important to
This
have
was
that
pre-K
distinction
Mhm.
between the two and if the two exist or not,
No, that's a wonderful
based
question.
on our last conversation.
This was pre-K days.
Was it?
Get it? Because
Wait, you're saying this won't happen anymore?
pre-Kaylee.
What are you
Hey,
saying?
Kaylee. The silence is so loud.
I mean, I still got that 2-person tent whenever we go backpacking.
That's right.
I'm winking on this eye so the camera can't see.
Me too.
And so your girlfriend can't see.
That, no,
Exactly.
The camera.
So the one you love can't see.
Yes.
I
No,
love
totally.
Ian too.
You have a deep affection for Ian, I would say that, yeah.
See, we follow the worldly definition of love.
Your bromance.
It's a bromance.
We-
Strong
we-
bromance. Oh,
to,
can I have
to be
some?
honest, we always
Use some
said
of that
this.
coconut water.
Ethan and I always said this before Kaylee was around. We were like,
You're using my Stanley just as
hey,
much as me.
hey, I'm talking, bro. Come on. Just kidding. Yeah.
Sorry.
Like, Ethan and I always said this before, like, he found you or
Yeah.
whatever. He's like, only if Ian was a girl or only if Ethan was a girl would be a perfect couple. And it's pretty true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think you guys would work like very well together.
we do.
Yeah,
Yes.
I found you.
I can't wait for that Brotherhood episode still. That one's still like,
Yeah. Don't
I'm really
finish
excited
it.
for
I
that.
want some.
Okay, anyways, let's get back on topic, shall we? All right. So, now if that means we have the choice to pick who we love
Yeah.
because God gave us a choice,
Yeah.
we might as well do a good job about it.
Yeah.
There's a proverb, I don't remember it, the exact verse, but I do remember what it says. It says, it's better to wander the wilderness than to have a
nagging wife.
nagging wife. I always remember that one.
Yeah.
You know, so if it's implying that, right, that nagging wife, that means it's very possible for us to make the wrong decision, to make the wrong choice. So how do we make the right choice? Well, I think first off, watch last episode because, you know, you got to understand what love is. If you know what the definition of love is, you can start to look at relationships differently. You can start to see people as, is this someone that I can truly love? And not in a lustful way, because you can go to any female that you find attractive and have sex with them, right? But it's a lot harder to love that person and to have to, you know, work together through their baggage and your baggage and to work. And I probably should have said this last episode, but I want to put this too, in marriage, there is a lot more stuff you have to do together than in a couple.
Yeah.
Like you have joint finances. You have a house together. You have kids.
Kids.
You have
Freaking kids.
You have to agree on how you're
Kids.
going to raise your kids before a marriage.
Before a kid.
That is something I stand so firm on.
100%.
Because if not, like that's something my parents have always instilled in me
Yeah.
is you have to agree on that. Because if you don't, there's going to be conflict and it's going to be really
Yes.
hard. Not to say that people with two different like belief systems or faith systems can't be married. We see it all the time.
Yeah.
But it just makes it a lot harder because one person has to sacrifice a lot more, and it gets complicated.
100%. No, that's so good. Okay. Yeah, no, that's great. And I love that. And so there's a lot to look for when it comes to finding the one or making the right choice. And I want to we got a whole episode planned for that. And yeah, there's a lot, and it can be a headache. And you mentioned last episode, technically like 10 minutes ago, but you mentioned like sometimes it feels daunting because you have all these expectations. And as you develop your relationship with God, it seems like you just keep tacking on expectations. And then women come into your life, and I think sometimes Satan puts them there of that. I'm like, well, they don't fit A, B, C, D, but they do fit E and G. Maybe, and I've been here, maybe. And I made this mistake with one of my relationships where I was like, I don't know, A, B, and C don't add up, but she's a Christian, so maybe, and it seems like there's no one else in this option. We dated for like 3 weeks, and I broke her heart because I just could not feel that love, and not an emotional feeling, but things did not work.
3 weeks is such a short time too.
Yeah.
That's like a nanosecond.
Well, and we're still friends, but we were friends for a long time before this, like pretty close friends. And yeah, there was a lot of baggage after that breakup that we had to work through. So it was a whole big deal.
Yeah.
So I learned my lesson 100% from that. And that really led me into a season of, okay, well, clearly I'm getting something wrong. Either my expectations are wrong or my thought process on the actual people out there is wrong. And it ended up being the thought process on something else out there. And I think the most important part is if you have expectations, it's okay to have expectations. You know, the only expectation I deny is girls like short people, dude. Like 5'6" is okay. It's short. I get it. I understand.
Justice for our short kings.
Come on, I'm a short king out here, all right? Please cut that one out of your life. No.
Hey now.
Hey now. Yeah, no, but that comes to the time of singleness, right? And I mentioned this last episode. If you don't love God, you're not going to be able to love yourself, and therefore, if you can't love yourself, you cannot love other people, right?
Yeah.
And I mentioned last episode, if you cannot, if I can't love myself, how am I supposed to love my partner? So that means I need to go to God first, because if I can go to God first, I can then therefore see how God sees me. And guess what? God is the one that instills these family values into our lives, these dating values into our lives, the things that help us add on our expectation list. And God is also the person that will maybe nudge a good candidate that you have the option to choose into your life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I want you guys real quick to tell your story, because I think it is kind of there is kind of a miracle to that. And I'm not saying that Kaylee, you were the chosen one for him, because and I think God put you, and I want you guys to more elaborate on the story, put you in his life in a very uncertain time, right? And Ethan had a big battle of, am I choosing her right now or not? So please just.
I think, how do you want to do this? Do you want to tell your side and then I'll tell my side? Or
Yeah.
do you want to just...
No,
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, the last year was one of the best years of my entire life.
Thanks to me, of course.
You were one of the biggest reasons for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah. So last year I was preparing to get ready to go into this program called Youth with a Mission, or YWAM. And so I thought I was going to be leaving for Norway. And I was supposed to be gone for 7 months training how to be a missionary. And so my goal, I want to get into ministry. I want to be a pastor. I want to teach people about Jesus. And so I thought, this is my way in. And I really felt like God was calling me into it. I really did. There was a lot of prayer behind it. There was a lot of talking with trusted mentors and friends with it. And everyone was very supportive. And I raised up money and everything. I had enough to make it there. And had a blast, had an amazing summer. I took off work. I stopped working about July, the end of July or mid-July, and Ian and I went and took a really cool trip. We went to Yellowstone and the Tetons. We backpacked the Tetons. And then I also saw my dad in July. I went out to Texas for a week, went and visited him. We went to San Diego in July too. We were in like five different states in July. Yeah. It was crazy. And so it was so fun. And then we actually ended up coming back early from the Teton trip. Because
which should not have happened.
Yeah, no, we were out. It's really weird when you really try to put it all together. It's really freaking weird.
God killed our legs for your relationship to happen.
Yeah,
I went through pain for you.
No,
I'm
seriously,
sorry.
like both of us were like, really like, at least we were very anxious at one point when we were up in the mountains backpacking. And we really were just like, we really just like want to get home. Like we really just want to get back to the car. And so we pushed it out, and then we ended up hiking out the next day and really pushing ourselves. We hiked like 12 more miles than we intended to. We did like a total of like 18 miles that day. It was ridiculous.
With like 35 to 40 pound backpacks.
Yeah, it was insane. And then Ian got a bunch of blisters. We almost didn't make it back to the car that night. We thought we were going to have to sleep at the trailhead.
We were pretty much crawling. At the very end, I was cursing the trail for existing. No,
seriously.
And like we were pretty much at the point of crawling, and we have sticks too. And we're almost to the finish line, and there's a tree. There's a
that
tree.
Fell over in the middle of the trail.
I swear.
Oh,
I admit high school, but I'm a parkour athlete. I'm normally like doing flips off of those trees, and I literally was like, like sliming my way over that tree. It was
terrible. And then we get to the trailhead, and it's like 7, and there's a bunch of cars there, but no one was back yet.
Oh man.
No internet.
And we had no internet, so we couldn't call an Uber. So we were like, and our car is about 50 miles the other direction, and so
yeah.
We were like, this sucks. So thankfully, 2 really cool rock climbers hiked back. We were like, hey, can you give us a ride into town?
Initially, we were kind of skeptical and we were like, please. I could barely walk, man.
Please, just the town. And so they took us into town, got an Uber, got back to the car. We treated ourselves with a nice hotel that night. Anyways, we came back. We originally were planning on staying at Jackson Hole that night. Mm-hmm. We were planning on going to the fair, but then we had to get out of our hotel like at 11, and then we realized, what are we gonna do from 11 to like 6 when the fair starts? Mm-hmm. And we were like, we went into the convenience store, grabbing just like a snack, and Ian looks at me and he goes, "Do you just want to go home today?" And I go, "Yeah."
It was the most not indecisive, but oddly enough, the most decisive decision we made the entire trip. And it was literally within milliseconds of me just thinking in a convenience store in the middle of the day of like, man, I just want to go home. You want to go home? Yeah. I'm like, okay then.
Guess we're going home.
We drove home.
So we drove home that night.
This is like 3 or 4 days before we're supposed to get home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the next day I go down to my grandparents' land to go to see them. Did like a little camping trip there. Had a lot of fun. And came back on a Saturday night. And then Sunday, I text Ian and my cousin, and I was like, hey, do you guys want to go to the Grizzly Rose? And the Grizzly Rose is this country dance bar. And so on Sunday nights, it's called Family Night. And so basically, if you're under 21 or under 18, you're allowed in. Usually they have like concert nights, which are like 18 and up, but every other night is 21 and up. And so Sunday nights are the only nights we could get in besides concerts. But yeah, so we went on Sunday night. Ian, Taylor, and I are all dancing, and then Taylor goes home, and then Ian is hanging out on the side. And so
not in the mood.
He was not in the mood to dance that night.
That is the one thing I remember from that night is your face. You looked so mad. You were miserable, didn't want to be there. So thank you for taking one for the team. Even though on like episode 2 you said it's been the worst 6 months of your life, so I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Dang, bro.
Thank you for taking one for the team.
Yeah, so we were hanging out, and we run into one of our friends that we met at the Rose like a few weeks ago, and him and I were like vibing and stuff. And so I ended up saying hi. We were talking for a while, and there were 2 girls with him. And so one of them was Kaylee. And so for like the next 20 minutes, I was trying to figure out which one Zach was dating. And so
Neither.
And
was
so
the
and
answer.
I come to find out he wasn't dating either of them. But no, so we were talking. We introduced ourselves to each other. We were talking for a little bit, and all of a sudden, a song came on, and no one was like no one was just, everyone was off beat.
Because it was Cowboy Cha-Cha. That's like hard to stay on beat. For those of you who don't know, it's Cowboy
No,
Cha-Cha.
it was that one where like you do like the 2, like the slow step forward.
Oh,
so
Tennessee Whiskey, like that one. Yeah.
It was
okay.
that one. And then we were just like kind of like standing there, and we're like looking around, and both of us were like, no one's getting this. And so I just looked at her and I was like, would you like just to dance instead? And she goes, yeah. And so we started dancing, and then we just started talking more, and then we I went up to Ian, and I was like, bro, there's a really cute girl. I was like, I want to get her number. And
I was already waiting on the sideline for this.
And he was waiting for me to go. He was waiting for me to be like, let's go.
I was like this. I was like, they probably thought I was security at that point. I'm just like,
you just looked so upset. You were just pouting in the corner by the door.
And so we were like, so I go up to Ian. I'm like, dude, let me just get her number. And then I go back to where Kaylee was at.
15 minutes later.
And I couldn't find her. And so then I go back to
thought
Ian.
you left.
And then I go back to Ian. I'm like, bro, I can't find her. Please just give me like a little bit more time. And he goes, okay,
After
bro.
like 10 minutes already.
And so
I'm like, I've been waiting 40 minutes at this point. So I'm just like, Ethan, you're lucky. I love you, you son of a.
And so then I go back out there, and then I find Kaylee again. And I'm like, before I even finish my sentence, she's already pulling her phone out.
No, you can't
out of
say
her back
that.
pocket.
You can't
She's
say
already pulling her phone out of her back pocket.
Why?
What?
Why can't he say that?
Yeah.
It's embarrassing.
It's embarrassing.
Why is that embarrassing?
Yeah, why is it embarrassing?
Well,
It's cute.
You finish your story and I'll share mine.
From our perspective, it's cute.
I love it, okay?
Made it
Anyways.
easier for him.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously.
I want a girl to throw her number in my face.
So I asked her for her number, and then that night I just texted her. I was like, hey, like, did you make it home safe? And keep in mind, this is 2 weeks before I was supposed to go to Norway. So I was really trying to figure out what my next play was here, because I was like, I don't want to lead this girl on. So I'm just going to be very up straight with her. So she texted me something of like, oh, like you missed this song when you left. But don't worry, we have like plenty more weekends at the Rose.
That's exactly what I said.
And so I know. I remember
You
it very
remember
well.
well.
And so
Time to start memorizing scripture, bud.
how come you don't memorize scripture like that?
Text.
And so I was like, oh yeah, about that. I actually don't have that many more weekends at the Rose. And so I explained like my situation with Norway. And then I was like, hey, like I know that I'm supposed to leave, but I really want to get to know you, because I think you're really amazing, and I think you're really beautiful. I'd really like to take you out on a date. I was like, but only if that's okay with you. Like I want to be very honest with you. Like I'm leaving in 2 weeks for 7 months. And she goes, yeah, that sounds nice. That okay. And so yeah.
It's a very good impression.
Yeah.
And so that's how we met.
Yeah. I think I love how you tell it. It's so great.
He's a storyteller.
You are a storyteller. The way you tell stories.
A lot of
tell
false narratives
stories is
there.
awesome.
Just kidding. No.
No, he's pretty accurate on it. Okay, so for context for me, the 2 weeks motif is a very like weird one, because I went to college. It's empty. You drink it all. I went to college in Utah at the University of Utah, and I had the most weird kind of like horrific string of events happen that summer, and it was the best. Okay, you want to go feel that? Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Ian.
Oh, thank you, dear friend.
What a G.
And so I had decided to move back. I had a really bad summer. I went through a really bad breakup, a really bad friendship breakup, lost a roommate, had to move houses. It was really just, I was so depressed, anxious about everything. And so I came home. And I made that decision like you made the decision in the Tetons. I called my mom. I got this feeling. I was like, what if I just move home? What if I transfer schools, move home? Yes, this is a life that I really wanted, and I've been really trying hard to make it work, but I was kidding myself ultimately. And so that's my background going into this. And I really was kind of not looking for anything at the moment, but I kind of was, because like I'm not kidding myself when I say I'm a hopeless romantic and I do what you do, where you're like, oh, like I met this person. Could it be, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went into that night like, oh, like, haha, what if I dance with a cute cowboy? Like, that's so funny. Like, wouldn't that be funny? Because I just went back 2 weeks before that. I'd been home for 2 weeks. And so I was so unsure of everything. But I go and I'm dancing with Zach and our friend Natalia. They're great friends of ours still. We love them. And this guy comes up. And he's super tall, cowboy hat, very cute. And he goes, hey, Zach, what's up? And I, in my head, am like, oh. And I go, hi, I'm Kaylee. It's so nice to meet you. And so...
Hold on, I have a question for you. Did you even see Ian during this whole interaction?
No. I don't...
He was right next to me.
I don't remember Ian being there. I just remember that's how much you, like, captivated me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I get it. Girls look right over me because I'm so short.
It's not because you're short. It was because I was trying.
Because you wanted a tall guy. I'm taking this head on right now, okay? Short lives matter.
Okay.
Just kidding.
Yes. I personally just have a type for tall guys. I don't know what it is.
You don't know what it is. You're part of 95% women. You're just average, okay? I'm looking for a queen, okay?
No.
Did you just call me average?
Wow.
I thought we were friends.
That is
think you're an above average friend.
There is nothing
No, I agree.
average about it, okay?
You're above average friend, but you're selective for tall guys as average.
Okay. Moving on. It's not because, okay, now that I really think about it, I do think that you were there. I just was so captivated by Ian's cute, or not Ethan's
wow,
cute.
what? Plot twist.
Cut the camera.
Cut the cameras. Your guys' names sound so similar that my ADHD brain, the Ian and Ethan, I can't, like, I do it all the time just on accident.
She'll call me Ian
It's like,
sometimes.
yeah, it's like when your grandma's like, hey, Lexi, Daisy, Kid. Those are my grandma's
So you're
names.
essentially a grandma.
Essentially.
Got it.
So there's nothing wrong with that. Okay, I love my grandma. She's a very sweet lady.
Absolutely.
And so, anyway, I was like, oh my gosh, she's so cute. And Ethan went and walked away, and he was like, oh, I think he might have introduced you. He was like, oh, this is my friend Ian. But I honestly don't remember. I just remember you being mad on the wall.
What a loser.
I'm sorry.
He's short and a loser.
It intimidated me. When I went to meet you for the first time, I was like, I'm so terrified, because I was telling Ethan, I was like, you hype him up so much that if he doesn't like me, like, I am so terrified of that. And I still care, like, what you think of me as a person. It's insane. But I
hope my many mean jokes get to your heart.
They do. They really do. Yeah, it's just bullying in this household. That's it.
Pretty much.
So,
on Ethan most of the time, though. Usually we're on the same team.
Yeah, although I can dish it back. Yeah,
absolutely.
But as soon as Ethan walked away, he was like, oh, it's good to meet you. We're going to go get water or something, or I think, I don't know. And I look at Zach and I'm like, Zach, who is that? I need to know. He goes, oh, that's Ethan. I met him over the summer. I was like, huh, okay. But then I was trying to see, like, move towards you, between you and Zach, but Zach kept trying to dance with me. So I was like, Zach, no, like, let me have my shot.
That's why I thought they were dating.
Like, because Zach, he's an amazing dancer. Shout out Zach if you're watching this.
He's really good.
He's really good.
He's good.
And he just kind of dances with everyone. It's just kind of a thing that you do with the Rose. You just dance with everyone, try and improve everyone's dancing skills. And so I was trying to dance with Ethan and, like, look back and, like, smile at him, trying to, like, you know, like, riz him up. And so...
the Riz. Not the Riz.
But I was like, oh, like, he's cute. Like, I am such a sucker for, like, dancing with the cowboy, like, it's like the movie love story, you know?
That's pretty much what happened.
That's pretty much what happened. I'm lucky.
We
Thank
haven't
you,
even
Jesus.
gotten to the first date yet.
By the way, I made half of the movie because I was pissed off.
You did. You did.
There would be no movie without you.
Yeah, you had to have an antagonist.
Yes, you
I'm
have to.
happy to be it.
You gotta have the best friend. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But Ethan kind of just like stuck around. I was like, okay, does this boy like me? Does he not? I'm confused. And it wasn't until you asked me to dance. When it was just Zach went with Natalia to dance. I don't know where you were, to be honest.
On the wall.
On the wall.
Doing
On
push-ups
the
or
wall.
something. Just kidding.
And so I feel so bad because like I know you were there, but I was so
cares?
just
Babe,
like,
you got to get through the story.
I'm sorry. I'm getting through the story. The ADHD. Anywho, spinning up. He asked me to dance. I say yes. It was like this magical moment. And then, yeah, of course, I pulled my phone out. I thought you left. And I was like, oh my gosh. Because I was like, if this is not what you're about to ask me, I'm going to ask you.
And then I asked her.
Yeah. And then here we go. We went on this amazing date. And yeah, that we were both kind of like, uh-oh. And then your visa never came.
Yeah. So
She has it still.
she burned it.
I remember you saying that. I thought this was our secret.
Stop talking.
No one knows. No one knows.
Everyone knows.
This is your fault.
Everyone knows. Why are we playing the blame game today?
Anyways.
Okay, but yeah. So I'll try to get through that date to present.
I'm
as
sorry,
quickly.
you tell
No,
him
you're
my
okay.
ADHD, too
You're
many
okay.
details. My
Don't
bad,
worry about
guys.
it.
I keep
But-
interrupting, so it's kind of my fault.
I'm a
But
yapper.
but no, I love always talking about this story. But
You tell it better, though.
After I asked her out on the date, she was like, yeah, like my parents and I, they always do like this big camping trip every year. And so they were about to leave for it. And so she was like, I can do it before Friday that week. And we were on Monday. And I was like, okay, like how does Thursday night sound? And she was like, okay, that sounds great. And I was like, cool. I'll come pick you up. And then I had a time, I had a place. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had time, place, everything picked out. And so every year we have this fair that's near our house. And this year, Jordan Davis was playing. And so if you don't know Jordan Davis, he's a country artist. And so he shows
Very
up on the radio quite often. But tickets were like super cheap. They were like $14 a ticket. It was great. So I go and pick her up. I accidentally met her entire family. On the way there, I was thinking to myself, I was thinking to myself, I was like, what do I usually do the night before I go camping? And I'm like, usually I'm out in the garage like packing. And I was like, shoot, I wonder if like her whole family's gonna be out in the garage like getting ready. And they were. And so as soon as I pull into her house, her mom, dad, and sister are all waiting there. And she's just like in the middle of them. And so I get out of the car, I go up to them, I meet all them, I shake all their hands, and then talk with them for a little bit. And then we start getting ready to go. Open the door for her, of course. And then we hop in the car and we go off. And then get to the fair, we hang out, go to the concert. And then, at the end of the night, we went on top of the Ferris wheel, saw all the lights and stuff. And then
That was where we asked all the hard questions. Like, are you really okay with me leaving for 2 weeks? I was kidding myself. It would have been hard, but I'm thankful for the way things turned out.
yeah,
More
then
of the
we.
story's timing.
I looked at her and I was like, I was like, are you sure? Like, are you okay with like me leaving like for like 7 months?
Yeah, guy I just met.
So I don't know. Like it was hard. And so, but then I had a spot and I took her to like this parking lot that was nearby and I turned up the radio, rolled down the windows, and I asked her to dance. And we started dancing, and then we just started talking, like asking questions of like, what do you look for like in a relationship? Like, what do you want like your future to look like? Do you want kids? Like, what do you want to do for like your passions? Like, just like those deeper like questions, just like getting to know each other and just like seeing if like it's like compatible and stuff. And so
compatible spiritually too. On the second date, that's when you really asked and got into that.
yeah. And so I left that night dropping her off back at home, and I was like, like shoot, whoops.
Yeah.
And so so I started falling for her, and then we had a second date. And so the second date was just her making dinner at her house, and then I knew I was in at that point. So we had
Proverbs
dinner.
31.
And then we started talking, and then I asked her to church if she wanted to come to church with me. And that was a little bit of an awkward weekend because that was supposed to be my last Sunday in town in the United States for 7 months. And I was also supposed to go up on the platform to speak for a little bit, just to do like a little interview with our pastor up on the stage. And so I was like, I want you to come, but I also want you to know, like, I'm going like up on the platform, but that's not why I want you to come. Like, this is the only weekend that works. And so she was like, yeah, like I'll come and stuff. And so then she met all my friends. We all went out to lunch and stuff afterwards. But yeah, but then as time went on, my visa just never came. And yeah, and I think it was just really God's timing of all of it, just because the last like 6 months, like as amazing and as like fun and rewarding and like how much I've been blessed in the last like 6 months, it has also been the most challenging 6 months of my life, between having no job, having a lot of family stuff going on, having a lot of internal stuff going on, like just it felt like there was a lot of weight on me. And Kaylee has definitely been like the person to redirect me back to God every single day. And so that's why for me, like, that's why, like, I love Kaylee. It's because of her character, because like I know that like when I am in like the deepest trenches, like I know that she's going to direct me in the right area. It was an interesting time because I thought God was preparing me for one thing, and that just was like completely like, I don't want to say stripped away, because God didn't take anything away from me. He just redirected me. And so
added on in a different way.
Yeah, exactly.
To teach you something.
And so moving out of my mom's house, moving in here, meeting Kaylee, starting and building a relationship with her, there's been a lot more that I've been learning, and I'm so much happier that I got to stay these last 7 months rather than leaving, because there's been a lot of amazing things happening. Like one with obviously moving in here, and how you know, like we've gotten closer with Dante. Obviously Kaylee and I dating and getting closer and learning more about each other and building a relationship, with putting God in the middle and really learning like what that means and how to do it, and just stuff with the small group. Then we have like other opportunities coming up later this year. I mean, it's just like God just took one thing and then he turned it into a bunch of other different things. And I just think it was all for his plan. And so I think everything's just going how it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
But I think like when we talk about like finding the one and stuff, I think it 100% is a choice.
Yeah.
Because there were a lot of times, especially like at the beginning, where like Kaylee and I did like first started dating, I was really like questioning of like, is this like the relationship like I'm supposed to be in? Like I think
the timing just made it so weird.
I think so too. It made it more difficult to kind of like comprehend, because
decipher through.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because there was so much other stuff going on. Yeah. And I want to make sure, I think asking those hard questions is really good, because when I say that, like I was like asking like if this is the relationship God wants me to be in, it's not because like I didn't want to be with Kaylee. It's not because like she's not the person I want to be with. It's just more of the fact of like, I was really trying to be honest with myself as like, okay, like, am I doing this because like I'm hurting right now because I'm not leaving and I'm trying to like use this girl like as a distraction, or like am I actually like feel like or do I actually want to be with her?
Yeah.
And so really what I've learned like with Kaylee is like basically it's cheesy, but like growing up, like I really, same thing, like hopeless romantic, and I always had like this picture, especially when I started following Jesus, like I really had this picture of like the woman that like I wanted to like be with and wanted to spend my life with, and the kind of character that she had, and it matches up with Kaylee so well. I mean, the way she's like so kind to everyone, the way she's goofy and funny and it's just so much fun to go on adventures with her. And I mean, above all, just the way that she loves God. I mean, in the short amount of time that she's been following Jesus, the last like year has just been like, you know, so amazing to me. Like, I'm so proud of you. And so yeah, it's just like, those are the kind of things like I'm looking for. That's the kind of like character I'm looking for. And one thing that I really have like learned in this relationship is like how like that's not worth giving up so lightly. Mm-hmm. Like, yes, there are going to be struggles. Yes, there's going to be temptations. Yes, there's going to be challenges, but doing life with someone who has that character and who has that heart is so worth it, because I know that like if the day does come where we do get married and we do have kids, it's like that's the kind of person I want to be with to raise a family and to go through those challenges with. Because if we can't handle the easier challenges, how in the world are we going to handle like the harder ones? Mm-hmm. And so when I think of like finding the one, it's just like, how can I find the one that fits all these different categories? I mean, I literally sat down. I have a note card full of kind of like Bible verses that fit the description of a godly woman that I'm looking for. And I literally sat down, I wrote out all those verses, and I was checking them off to see if Kaylee like matched them. And I kid you not, like I checked off pretty much all of them.
Which one did you not check off? We gotta know.
I took a picture of the card too in the car because I found it in your Bible. It fell out of it. Like the card literally, like I picked it up and the card fell out. And I was like, oh, what is this? He goes, oh, it's like my little like checklist. I was like, okay. So I did some digging. And because I wasn't familiar, before meeting Ethan, I never read the Bible. Like that is such an honest thing. And I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, what does a godly woman look like? And that was kind of the list. And I was like, not that I was trying to like follow it just to be like, oh, this is what Ethan wants. I was just like curious. Mm-hmm. I just thought it was funny. But
yeah. But yeah, like Kaylee said, like that's something like I always pressed of like, you know, like I care about you and I want to be with you, but I also need to make sure that like when pursuing God, like you need to be doing it for the right reasons. Yeah. Because if you're not doing it for the right reasons, then it's all gonna like fall apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to follow Jesus because of me, because you know it's idolatry. Like I don't want you to put me above God. Yeah. And you know, like I also wanted that for her too. And I was also trying to check myself too of like, you know, I never wanted to force anything on Kaylee. Like I wanted it to be her own decision. So it was more of like, I never said, if you don't do this, I'm not going to be with you anymore. It was just, hey, like, this is just how Jesus has like changed me. And he's just like absolutely like turned my life upside down. And I just kind of like talked with her about it a lot and just like, you know, brought her to church with me and just like those kind of things. Because I never wanted to like force it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to point this out. Because we're talking about the one earlier. I was talking about how there isn't the one. There may be a one, but that doesn't mean that it's one person. And what's interesting about your guys' story, right? And you kind of said this kind of threw you guys off a little bit, is the miraculous timing of things. It almost like seems like God orchestrated everything, and I think He did, but it's not in the one category. I think God has the power and the authority to be able to align somebody in your life, but it does come down to, do you want to make the choice? And in your situation, Ethan, I think there was two ways you could have taken, and maybe God would have taken you to Norway. It was all dependent on your choice, and none were wrong.
I think about that a lot too.
You know, and I'm not saying one was wrong. And I want to read this, and I'd like to go through all this. You mentioned Proverbs 31, but it talks about here in verse 11. Verse 10. A wife of noble character, and I'm not saying you guys are wives, but who can find, she is worth far more than rubies. You know what I mean? So would Norway have been full of riches and jewels for you? Absolutely. It would have. Is finding a godly woman? Yeah, it's equivalent to rubies. You know what I mean? So I think God put her in your life at a time and said, I have two options for you, son. I mean, I prepared you for Norway, but I think you're ready, and it's up to you. Whatever choice you want to make, I got you. And I think it came down to you making a choice in your heart, that moment of like, wait, God, like and I think part of it too that God rewarded was that humility of like, God, I will lay her down for your will to go to Norway. If it is your will to go to Norway, I know this is a little scary moment, but God, I want to do your will, not my own. You know, and I think that is what was rewarded, was God saw that, and I saw it in you from the conversations, private conversations we had. And I think that's so important, right? Because we know from, you know, Luke 13, where it's that literally the love of God has to be far more that you, like, he compared it to hating your spouse, hating your family. Like, that's how drastic the difference between loving God and loving your spouse is. Yeah. And I think you put yourself in a humble place of like, God, I don't know why this woman just happened to appear in these miraculous ways in my life. That's super cool. But God, despite that, I want to do your will. Yeah. And then I think God just said, all right, I gave you the opportunity. I gave you the choice. And your choice is, may your will be done, not mine. And so God, it's like, all right, here you guys go. I'm not even going to send that visa to you. Yeah. And that's going to lead you in a very turmoil season where you two can work things out together, right? Yeah. Not only do you guys spend more time together, but you can work things out together. So I think it's very important. I think God could definitely make timing for you. And I think God can tell you no. Yeah. He can tell you, no, this isn't the person, or like look somewhere else, or yeah, I would recommend this person. I think he can absolutely do that. Yeah. But I've given you in God, and how does he do that? It's his word. He gives us the resources to be able to do that. We know what God says. We know what he appreciates and what he loves. And he already tells us who to look for.
Yeah. I think it's so interesting too, because I was in a place, you say that he gives you the resources. Not to say that Ethan is the sole reason why I have a relationship with Jesus. It was my choice. He made that very clear. But God put Ethan in front of me to give me the resources. Yeah. I think in a way, because I was in such a broken place, in such a weird place, where honestly, I had a very skewed idea of what religion was. I lived in Utah, and I saw very toxic religion practices, people who claimed to be one thing but weren't, and it was just really like weird, and I was so like confused. Honestly, just confused. And so I on the other spectrum, I met great people. I lived with amazing people who followed a faith system that was just they were amazing people. So I was just confused because I met both sides. And so I think God put Ethan in front of me. I just still can't explain it. It's so weird, the timing. I have never found myself more happy with myself in life than I am with Ethan and having a relationship with God. It's so weird how that works. And it's interesting how you're like, you have to love yourself and love God before you can love someone else. For me, it was kind of backwards. And I think that's so, I think that's weird. I don't know. I just can't explain it. But I've never been so happy in a relationship and felt so loved. But I think it has everything to do with God and Jesus in that moment. Because I feel loved by Jesus, which helps me love Ethan in the way that he needs, in the way that, is good. I don't know if that makes sense.
I think one thing, that reminds me of is kind of like what we used to talk about, when we first started dating. It's I used to say, all the time of, how I wanted to, love you. And it was, how Jesus sees you. I want to see, how Jesus sees you. Yeah. And always just saying no matter how much I say I love you, or no matter how much I show you that I love you, just know that Jesus loves you so much more than that. Yeah. And I know, I think that was really good. I've never done that in a relationship before, where we were okay, we had all the really hard conversations
right off the bat.
Yep. I think it was the second date.
It was. You grilled me.
We were sitting there, and I look at her and I go, so what do you think about sex? And she looks at me.
I was stirring the pasta and I was like, huh?
And she goes, huh? And I was like, yeah, like I want to wait till like marriage.
Mm-hmm.
And like we just had like a lot of conversations about it. And looking back at it now, when I probably said that, it probably came off more as like, you want to. Like,
That was going through my head. I was like,
That's a weird way to ask, but
what?
okay. Yeah.
is this boy about to ask me?
Like, what?
No, but we
Yeah.
got all the hard conversations like right off the bat. And I think that was just like so good.
I want to say this, right? A lot of people say this, right? Especially about sex. You got to test the product before you buy it.
Oh, I hate that.
Hate it, right?
I hate it.
I'm like, bro, no, you don't. No, you don't.
No.
First off, like we said, love is a choice, right? And that's one thing you have to work through as a married couple.
Yeah.
Is your sex life.
Yeah.
Bro, you're supposed to learn it with them.
You're supposed to learn it with
That's
them,
the
see what
point.
they like, see what they don't. Obviously, follow biblical standards of what sex looks like. But yeah, you're supposed to work together to figure it out. And if your sex life in marriage is bad, well, stop watching porn, stop having false expectations, and talk to your partner.
How about this?
Communicate with
How
your
about
partner.
this? Actually listen to your wife and what she wants and not just do what pleasures
It's
you.
serving them. It's all
Exactly.
about it's serving.
That's what sex is supposed to
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
It's supposed to be serving each other.
Yeah.
It's supposed to like. It's supposed to just like make each other like feel good. You know what I mean? Like I don't know. Like listen to your spouse. Like, do you like this or do you not like it? Like it's so awkward and like we're laughing and giggling right now, but like I'm like it's so serious because so many like you hear stories about it like all the time. Like so many people are unhappy because like the sex isn't good. And it's just I think a lot of it is just because like people just like don't want to hear it and they don't want to try to like they just want to I think that's like the worldly view of sex too, and that's where like lust comes in, like we were talking about the last episode of like I think that's where it becomes really damaging in a marriage if it happens before, because a lot of people use sex to fulfill their own pleasure and their own desires. So when you actually get into a marriage and now that's the person that you're committed to, and now one person is no longer getting like filled like that,
Yep.
then there's no that intimacy is no longer building the relationship like it's supposed to.
Keenan Clark put it. I keep referring to the dude, but he's phenomenal. He's blessed,
Love Keenan.
led by the Spirit. He said this, and it's so good. Before marriage, the Satan just tries to make you sleep with each other. After you're married, it's the opposite, where Satan tries to make you not sleep with each other. All of a sudden, now you don't want to. And that's where the serving comes in of like. And I've seen this with good couples. It's like sometimes you got to schedule out. This is kind of weird to talk about. But schedule out your sex time, right? Because it is serving one another. And men, we have high sexual desire. More than women do. And it's not only is the woman serving us, but we got to serve them in the moment. Cause, Anyways, that's kind of a side tangent. But I really want to get into this here in 2 Corinthians, and it's the equally yoked. Okay, because so I'm going to read this. It's 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14. It says, the title of this says warning against idolatry. And then 14 goes in, do not be yoked together with unbelievers. For what do righteousness and wickedness have in common? Or what fellowship can light have with the darkness? What harmony is there between Christ and Belial? I'm assuming that's like a false god. Or what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? What agreement is there between the temple of God and idols? We are the temple of the living God, as God has said. There's a lot to break down here. I think it's very interesting that this is titled a warning against idolatry. Idolatry, for those who do not know, is when you idolize something other than God. It says in the Ten Commandments, essentially, that's one of the 10 Commandments is warning is idolatry. That is a big sin. And God he says this himself, I am a selfish God. Do not false idolize anything. Idolize me and me only. I am the only God. So it's interesting how it's talking about relationships here, because we can easily fall into idolatry of our spouse. Very easily. We can, and I'm calling out those people that you stop seeing all your friends when you start dating, and You never see your friends again. You never talk to your parents anymore because you're idolizing. If you don't have time for your friends, then you definitely don't have time for God.
If you're not equally yoked, you're going to be equally yoked pretty soon because either one person has to lower their standards or the other one has to raise them.
So let me define yoked. Okay, so the word yoked actually comes from back in the old days, right? When they were plowing fields, there were the plows had two pieces of wooden beam, and in between those two beams were bison or oxen, two oxen. The yoke are those two pieces of wood that essentially kept the two oxen walking together. So one wouldn't go far off to the right and one would veer off to, no, it kept them together. So that's where the term yoked comes from. And so what it's essentially saying is you need to walk together. And I think this is super important. And I think, hear me out, you're equally yoked if you both were not believers and then you both came to Christ. So it's okay if you were not believers at one point and then you came to Christ. But what an example of unequally yoked is, for example, me. God is my Lord and Savior. He's my number one. And then all of a sudden I abuse that and go find a woman that does not care about God whatsoever and does not want to follow those standards. And now I'm dating. It's equally yoked. And here it says, or what does a believer have in common with an unbeliever? First off, probably not. Your beliefs, your values, they're not going to be the same. Mm-hmm. On top of that, what agreement is there between the temple of God and idols, right? If you're literally, and this is an exact definition of it, if you are leaving, and we've seen our friends do this, and it's so sad. People that don't have a very strong relationship with God, where all of a sudden they have this decent relationship with God, and this woman comes in their life that is not equally yoked, and they leave. They fall off God because this woman, they start idolizing this woman or man. They idolize this person so much that they don't care about God anymore. Mm. God is anti-cultural to dating. I want to have sex. My girlfriend or my boyfriend wants to have sex. Sex feels good. I want to do that. God tells me not to. Screw that guy. I'm going to go have sex. And then all of a sudden, like you said, you're equally yoked and not with God. God's hand is not blessing your marriage. It's not blessing your relationship. Mm-hmm. And so equally yoked is so important. And I think, and I also want to bring this scenario in because I think we've seen a lot of couples that fall in this scenario where one person was equally yoked when they both were equally yoked when they got together, but all of a sudden the yoke has kind of broken in a way where one oxen seems to be so far ahead of the other oxen. What happened? Do you break up with that person or do you not? And I think I really want to define this, and I think this is good. Going back to what we talked about in Ephesians chapter 5 of how the man is supposed to be the spiritual leader within the household. Mm-hmm. Now, of course, that's referring to marriage. But I think some of that kind of applies to the relationship, right? If you are to be a man that's worth submitting to, it does have to happen in terms of it should naturally start to happen within
those qualities need to be showing while you're dating as well.
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost like practicing for marriage.
Exactly, right? Yeah. So if you are preparing yourself to be that man that's worth submitting to, and as a woman, you have the right mindset of who you're looking for that you're willing to submit to. See, now I'm off course. Where was I? Ephesians, and then we went into, back to the yoke. Dang it, dude. Got thrown off. Where was I? Kickstart me up.
You're saying how one's more ahead
equally
of the
yoked
other.
when one gets a little bit more ahead of the other.
Not?
Thank you.
You're
oh my
welcome.
gosh, I was losing the track. Yeah, no, but we've seen this where one oxen gets so far ahead and the other one falls behind. Mm-hmm. And the question is, do you break up? Because now you're not following the equally yoked thing. I would say, in the purity culture, the answer is break up. But that is so incorrect. Because once again, going back to like what we talked about last episode, if you're not able to work things out, and if you're not to be able to be a man that can lead in the name of Jesus, even if it is a girlfriend, then it's not going to work. So one scenario happened with a couple we know where, the guy was, he he's been a believer and has a really great, amazing relationship with God. And it seems like his girlfriend has not fallen in that course. And I was really proud of him when he said, I don't want to end this. And you know what he was implying was, I don't want to, but there's an option that I'll have to. And that is so perfect. It's the same thing like your choice with, do I choose her or do I choose Norway, right? Same exact choice. You have that choice. And I think God gives you that choice in that scenario of, both ways I will bless you. Mm-hmm. But what I really want to showcase here is he made himself available for God's will to be done. If that is for this relationship to continue working together, great. And once again, I'm talking, this isn't marriage. If this is happening in marriage, you guys need to work this out. Like, divorce is the last option that you guys need to talk about. But yeah, leading up to marriage, he put that, he was available. He set himself forth as available. And one thing I noticed with the girlfriend was she was asking him questions about God. Some maybe seemed a little bit more resentful. Sometimes they were having arguments on this particular topic, but she's asking about God. That's probably more than she ever would have done if you didn't have a relationship with God yourself. Mm. So that means she's watching you and she's curious about it, meaning you are leading her to Christ. She's starting to think this for herself and not just for her own, she's starting to think this for herself because she's seeing that you, as the guy or whoever in the relationship, is relentless about God. What we would see with unequally yoked is that one person would get pulled away and drag the other person with. But in this particular scenario, he is pulling her. He is relentless on his faith. He is not going to deject his faith. In fact, he's willing to break up if necessary for this faith. So it's the other way around, where he is not forcing her to come to Christ, but she's naturally wanting to climb further, even if it's a slow process, towards God. Mm-hmm. That's what leading is Jesus is my king. He is number one. I'm not going to break that. And that is what I look for. And it may take a while for her to come around. And I would say, if she is relentless on, no, I will not love God, and you are relentless on, well, I want to love God, and you've tried, once again, like you said earlier, you cannot have a savior complex. You can't save her, only God will. Mm-hmm. And maybe God is hardening her heart, or his heart, I keep saying his heart, because that relationship needs to end. You know, that relationship needs to end, but he wants you to make that choice of, son, do you choose me? Daughter, do you choose me, or do you choose him? I'm giving you all the things you need to look for in this relationship to see what is right or wrong. Mm-hmm. And now it's your choice.
Yeah. I think when you kind of come to that surrender moment where it's like, God, is this like what you were saying, is this relationship, I'm choosing to love you, and if I really have to, I understand, I'll end things. I think when you get to that point and you pray that prayer, I think he makes it very known very quickly on what it's going to be. And I think a lot of the time, we drag it out a lot, but I think kind of what you just said, the hardening of the heart, I think is God's way of I'm not going to let you ruin this. You know what I mean? I think if it's not in God's will, he's going to do something to get you out of it.
Yeah.
I've been in multiple situations where I just tried pushing it and pushing it and pushing it and pushing it until it was finally just you know what? God's clearly not in the middle of this, or God's clearly does not have a hand on this. And either I get put in a position where I just feel very miserable in the head to the point where I just can't handle it anymore. I'm just okay, I'm out.
Yeah.
Or he something happens where it's just where he just separates. I remember this story my cousin told me with her friend group, and she was she didn't have the best friend group, but she had a really hard time leaving them, because those were her friends growing up. and she just like prayed, and she was like, God, like I don't think these are the friends for me, but I don't know if I have the strength to like tell them that.
Yeah.
And literally a week later, something happened where she found something out that they were like doing, and she was just like, or something like that, or they said something, and that gave her the strength of like, you know what, like I don't want to be a part of that anymore. And then she ended up not having those friends anymore. Yeah. And it's benefited her. It's been for her benefit, because now she has maybe fewer friends, but closer friends, and true friends and real friends. Yeah. And so
no, it's perfect.
Yeah, I think God, that's one of the ways that God really stays faithful. And I also think too, he also reads our hearts, right? Mm-hmm. So if he's reading Kaylee's heart or my heart or whatever, and one of us has the intention to do the other one to kind of like for like selfish reasons, like if I was in this relationship for a selfish reason, mm-hmm. God would see that, and I have faith that he would like pull Kaylee out of that situation, because he can see my heart and be like, that's not good for Kaylee.
Yep.
Yeah.
She doesn't need that in her life. And same vice versa. Like if it's like he could totally be like, Ethan doesn't need that, I'm gonna remove Kaylee from that. And I think that's like, that happens so many times, you know what I mean? Whether that's in relationships or friendships. Like I think that's just one of the way God stays faithful. And I think that's like so reassuring to me, because I'm really bad with those decisions a lot of the time. And like for me, like I really need that like prayer from God. I'm like, God, like, is this seriously like, like, do you like, if you need to pull me out of this, pull me out of this.
Yeah.
Here's one thing I kind of really like too. It's the, I think not a lot of the time, but there's a few instances where you can't find an exact answer for something in the Bible. And especially for dating. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The Bible does not mention dating at all. I mean, sure, we can reference stuff to dating, absolutely. But when it really comes down to it, like, you just can't. There's no dating. And so there's this, and I think like a lot of the time, like before like people get into relationships, especially if you are following God, it's like, God, like, is this the relationship you want with me? Or you want for me? Is this like something you want me to pursue? Whether that is a relationship or another life decision. One thing is like, ask for wisdom from friends, from mentors, just a wise counsel, counsel, wisdom, and see what they think. And you know what? Like if you don't feel like there's a red light from God, and same thing from like your mentors and your close friends, who I need to say also have relationships with God and pursue God, because I think that's so important too. If all those things add up and are like, you got the green light from all those things, why not proceed? And just say like, God, like, I'm going to go for this, but if you don't want this for me, like, then close the door. And that's kind of what I did with like Kaylee. I was like, I don't really like know, like I've been like talking with a lot of people, and no one's really said like this is like a bad idea. Yeah. No one's really said like I shouldn't do this. The timing is really awkward, but I'm going to proceed. I'm going to listen to you and lean into you right now. But unless you close the door and unless you say otherwise, then I'd like to pursue this. And from that, it's just like the, you know, like obviously we're still here. So,
I think Dante put this really well one time, my twin brother. And he's been in a very long relationship, like 5 or 6 years or something like that. And he put it really good. Now, obviously, this timeline he put doesn't necessarily need to be exactly this timeline. But he says you need to fall out of that like honeymoon stage.
Yes.
Like wait like a year and a half before you even think about proposing. That's what he said. Because that is when you are forced to choose to love somebody. Mm-hmm. Because it's not that lust. It's not that sexual desire. And if you're doing it right and you're staying abstinent, that probably will fall off a little bit more quickly. I mean, just because you're rejecting your flesh, which is the lustful nature. And I think that's so important because I've been there where I was not seeing with a clear, conscious mind. When you're in the honeymoon stage, you're loving all the cuddles, all the kisses, all the holding hands, and it's something new. And that's where a lot of people make their mistakes. Not only do they fall into sinful natures like having sex and just doing really bad things, but the moment that thing falls apart, it's done, right? And now you severed that once again, that core, your soul apart with that person, just because you were not seeing clearly.
Yeah.
And that's why I really like what you said of go to people that are seeing clearly.
Yeah.
Like your parents, if you trust your parents, your siblings, your friends, your mentors. Go to those people because they can see that person for who they are, not in a emotional, lustful way. They're seeing them as a genuine human being. And you did that really well. And I also want to bring this back. Why is dating not in the Bible? Well, first off, we see the entire Old Testament is about the Israelites.
Yeah.
Those are God's chosen people. So that's where we're seeing marriage happen. And it comes back to the equally yoked. Is the Israelites, well, they should have, but they should have had one God, the Lord, right? They had one God, and usually their law was to not intermingle with other sexes, or not sexes, other, like, I'm going to say communities, not communities, but like nations. Tribes, because because that would only lead you to sin and to like that area. So it was, they didn't really need dating because it was like, okay, well, you're an Israelite. Cool. You already feel my vibe. I mean, you believe Lord is Lord. All right. You know that you need to submit. Cool. You are a Proverbs 31 woman. Awesome. So there wasn't.
Have you seen that one video where it's like Christians on like first dates, and he like, oh, hi, like I'm so glad you came, and he like gets down on one knee and he goes, oh yeah, Daddy God hasn't like given you that yet. Like, hasn't told you yet.
Yeah, no, it's so funny.
Yes.
But that's what's different about today versus back then. And this is one thing that's super important is you saw a woman. Yeah, I think it's okay to look at a woman and say, you know what, she's really attractive, but not in a sexual way. Right, don't be looking twice. Don't be thinking about it sexually because that's lust. But like, I think she's attractive. Let me go talk to her. That kind of thing. But yeah, back then it was all right, cool. Does she match this criteria? Cool. And back then it was also, do you know the family? That was a big part. Is like, do you know their family? How is their family? Because they are who they were raised by.
Yeah.
And and like you said, having kids, you got to talk about how you want to, not train your kids, but raise your kids.
Train your kids
like a dog.
How to train your kids.
But yeah, you can easily look at their parenting and how they were parented to understand how they would want to raise their kids.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's very important. And that's why it doesn't talk about dating in the Bible. But it's interesting that the equally yoked part is mentioned in the New Testament. Why? Because things are different. Things are different in our modern culture. That's why dating exists now. Now, where I would warn people not to do is treat dating as a hookup.
Yeah.
Where you're just so ready to leave all at once.
Yeah.
And that's why, going back to the singleness, I think it's so important that when you are single, you know exactly what you want and what you're looking for.
Yeah.
So then when you do finally get in a relationship, it's already that Israelite woman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you're in that relationship and you made that choice to be in that relationship, it's already that Israelite woman. I think that's so important. And I think I'm running low on things to say there.
So I think one thing we need to go back to with the equally yoked thing. I'll reread it. This is the ESV version one. So it says, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what partnership has righteousness with lawlessness, or what fellowship has light with darkness? What accord has Christ with Belial? Oh, yeah, that is a weird word.
I think that's a god.
Yeah, I think so too. Or what portion does a believer share with an unbeliever? What agreement has the temple with God with idols? For we are the temple of the living God, as God said. And then he says the thing. But I think we need to go back and look at the context. I don't think the unequally yoked or the equally yoked is specifically towards married couples or couples. I think it targets
Friendships too.
friendships. It targets the church as a whole.
Yeah.
100%.
And so do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. I think Jesus did this really well, where when Jesus was with sinners, sinners changed because they were around him. A lot of the time, we get changed because we're around sinners.
Yeah, we don't have that same power Jesus does.
And I think to a certain point, because I think there's a season where God is growing you, and I think there's a season where God is using you to plant and to harvest.
That's good.
And I think
that's good.
why are you hanging around unbelievers when you know you're not ready to yet? When God is still trying to develop you into the creation that he's trying to make you to be, and he's trying to make you stronger, and he's trying to plant you in him.
Yeah.
And that's why when it's so important especially when you like first come to know Christ, get planted in a community, get planted in a church, get planted around with people who follow Jesus. Start developing mentors, start developing friendships, because like that's where you need to be equally yoked at. Look at our friendship.
Yeah.
We both started pretty much from the same place.
Yeah.
And we have always been like this.
Yeah. No,
We
totally.
have always been like this. And so I think that's what the verse is referring to, because before we're ready to be in a place where we can go out and hang around, and I'm not saying like don't hang around sinners. If you hang out with
Jesus
people, if you hang out with people who don't believe in Jesus or don't follow Jesus, like don't hang out with them. I'm not saying that at all. What I am saying is be cautious when you are around people who don't believe in Jesus, and you need to ask yourself the hard question is, if I do hang out with this crowd of people, am I going to fall into sin? And be brutally honest with yourself.
You're absolutely right.
Because if you're going to, because you don't want to be led away, you know what I mean? Because like I know, like if I hang out with you on a Saturday night, I'm probably not gonna get into trouble. If I hang out with Kaylee on a Saturday night, I definitely know I'm not getting into trouble. But like, you know, like if I go hang out with, I can think of like a few people that I know, like if I were to go hang out with them, there's a good chance maybe I wouldn't necessarily, because right now I feel like I'm at that point where like, where I feel comfortable enough to be like, yeah, like I'm choosing not to do that. Like I just don't want to do that. But I think like for me, for example, like I have to be careful with like who I'm around with my words, because like sometimes I can get caught up in with like gossip or something like that. Just examples like that.
Yeah, that's good.
And so just being like cautious of who you hang out with, because it really matters like who you surround yourself
No,
with.
that's so good. If you can't say no to sinful things with your friends, how are you going to say no to sinful things with your
Yeah.
girlfriend?
I think
Or
having
boyfriend.
friends that surround you that are pretty equally, or even people that are far ahead from you, like with our relationship has given me so many fruitful things. It's given me you, and you've been a fantastic friend. And you and I are also in the same like career path almost. So we kind of talk about that, which is awesome. And we can give each other things on that, which you're doing amazing, by the way.
Thank you.
And
Vice versa.
I think, thanks. And just things like Gabrielle. It gave me Gabrielle, who's an awesome person to go to. And Eric, who's a great person to go to. He baptized me, which is so, so awesome. And it's just given me so many amazing things. And I think you had a big role in how me and Ethan got together too, because he told me, I wasn't there, but he told me about the conversation you guys had out by the fire. And I think that was so important too in his decision, because he had someone who understands where he's at versus someone who doesn't. I think a funny example is like when Ethan sleeps over at my house most of the time, he'll make himself like a little bed next to mine, like on the floor.
Yeah.
My sister, she doesn't really like follow Jesus. She's been to like church like growing up with me and everything. She goes to YS sometimes and it's super fun. but she's not in a place to really like understand why. If she watches this, then she'll know. But she's not in a place to understand. So she opens my door one night, and me and Ethan were both like sick at the time, so it was like, oh, we both could just kind of want our space as well. And so she was there. She goes, "What are you doing?" And we're like, "Oh, like we just kind of like want our space and stuff." And I was like, I was like, it was Ethan's idea, like, and all that. It's just because like she doesn't understand the place where we're coming from.
Yeah.
And it's kind of
I looked
hard.
at her and I said, yeah, we're going through a divorce right now.
we're going through
You're sleeping on the
it.
couch, Ethan.
We had a fight. He's been demoted. He's on the floor.
Yeah, no, yeah.
But I think that's just a funny example. And that's not to throw Lauren under the bus. It was really funny, actually. It's hilarious. But
That's great.
I think it's so important. Or like Riley, my best friend, who I go to school with. I see her all the time. She follows Jesus too, and it's so great to kind of bounce things off from a girl's perspective, because it's one thing to come to like you and Ethan and Eric, so it's different from a girl's perspective too.
100%.
So I love having Riley, because she's so great at kind of aligning. Me and her are pretty equally yoked, because she's not like a new believer, but I feel like we have the same like ideas about things, and the same, we just approach it in the same way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally.
But I think it really helps too in saying, hey, like Ethan and I, like, what do you think are going through this? What do you think about it? From like a spiritual lens versus someone who doesn't necessarily understand it.
Yeah.
I think it's really, really important to the success of your relationship.
I think it's really important to
It's just support in general.
personally, this is my take, and this is just me personally. I value a lot. I have like friends that don't necessarily follow Jesus, and I definitely value their advice and their wisdom. However, if I get like advice from somebody and they don't necessarily like believe in Jesus, and especially if it doesn't line up with God's word, like respectfully, I'm probably not going to take it. Like I'll listen, but I'm probably not going to like apply it.
I feel
At
like
least for spiritual stuff.
yeah.
It like depends on the situation, because I guess like for example for you, like business kind of side of stuff, like you have to go and learn the business side of things. However, you can take godly principles and apply it to it. But like when it comes to life and how to live life, I want to go to people that I want to have people surrounding me that are following Jesus, who have a heart for Jesus, and and just know God.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I want to elaborate that on a little bit further too, of like, God created literally everything. So that means there's a godly way of doing everything.
Yeah.
There is. And like business, right? That's a worldly thing, building a business. But it's amazing because there's a godly way of building a business. Jesus literally built his entire ministry. Solomon literally built the entire temple of I think it was the first temple. He built it, right? So there's a godly way of doing everything. And what I've seen in my life is I'm very blessed to have amazing parents that see the world the same way I do, and that I respect every bit of advice. Even if I don't want it, I know it's good. I know it's like, I don't want to hear that, but you're probably right. And so not only can I rely on them to teach me parenting, because they, in my opinion, they did a good job. But I could trust them for a lot of things, how to love, how to do a ton of things. But they also run their own business, so I can get business advice from them. And then God brought my mentor David in, which literally is a marketing agent. He runs 2 marketing agencies that he's probably making more now, but when I met him, he was making over $500,000 a year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like he's very successful. And the dude, I literally tell him this, and honestly, this is how I feel about my parents, is how I feel about you guys, and is I just feel like I do not deserve David. I don't. Like, it feels like just like my relationship with Jesus, I don't deserve Jesus. You know, his grace is so nice, his love is so nice, and that's how I really feel about all my friends and all the people in my life, but David in particular, because the dude just gives. He just gives not only his wisdom, his knowledge, his ear, his word, but also, like, I mean, he sends me a ton of clients, and he's doing my website for free. I mean, I'm doing some videos for free for him, but like the guy just gives. Man is just like Jesus. And that is the beautiful thing is I have a mentor that's successful in business that puts God number one in his business that I see as a spiritual mentor and as a business mentor.
Mm-hmm.
On top of that, I got Eric, which sees the world from a very mature spiritual level, a maturity that I want to get to. I want to have a relationship with Jesus just like Eric does. So, and I want to bring this back to relationships and you said this very well, is you need to have people that can discern your relationship for you, that you trust. Now, if somebody's like, you should not be in that relationship and you trust them, you might want to listen. Yeah. You might want to hear them out. Or if someone in your friend group that's just, just an entertainment friend, they're just there to entertain, and just they give you advice to break up, but yet all your close people that know exactly where you are on your spiritual walk and know exactly who you are as a person and exactly what you're looking for in a woman or a man, and they tell you no, well, yeah, I said back out, but if they tell you yes, probably should trust in that. And obviously continue trusting in the Lord. But yeah, you were going to say something?
Oh yeah, I was just going to say that I feel like knowing Jesus makes you appreciate things even more. Like the way you talk about David and Eric and your friends and your parents makes you appreciate things more. 100%. I think now having a relationship with Jesus and seeing how they love and seeing like my parents and the way they love is they don't necessarily follow Jesus, but my dad did growing up in the church and everything, so he kind of, those principles apply. But even my mom too, they're just so amazing at just giving that unconditional love and that advice. Like they've been through so much in life and they're such hard workers. It just makes you appreciate things more. And as I grow older and grow and see the things that Jesus can do, like it's just so much more special in those. And even in those little moments, like in your business and such worldly things, you can find the pockets of just like God everywhere, and it's so beautiful. I just love that and the way that you put it.
Yeah, that's nice. It's good. Yeah, I think we should wrap it up here. It is literally
it's late.
12:22 and we started filming at like 8:45.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we did film 2 episodes.
Time flies.
This is my 18th video filmed in one day. That's probably the most videos I've filmed in one day.
Yay.
Nice, bro.
Yeah, that's cool. As you can
them
tell,
all
we got
edited by the end of the night too.
Yeah, get to work.
Chop chop.
You're off the show. Just kidding, no. Yeah, so we're gonna end it here, guys. There's so much more we could talk about on this topic, and maybe we need to do a part 3 or something. But like to really sum everything up is define lust versus love. What does love look like? And that is Jesus. Jesus is the definition of love. He is love. He created love. So look at him for an example of how you should love your spouse or your girlfriend or your boyfriend. Be able to love yourself before you go and try to love somebody. Yes. I think that's important. And then there is not a particular one person that God has in store, but he gives you the choice. So you need to be reliant on the Lord to give you advice on your expectations and your standards. Great places to look are in Proverbs. Ecclesiastes? No. Song of Songs? No. I don't know. There's all over the Bible, there's some good relationship advice. But yeah, let the Lord give you some advice. And reading his word is probably the best way to do that, because he wrote down his law in the book. He wrote down all of his expectations for a good wife, a good husband in the book. So get into scripture, and that will start to renew your mind too. If some of the things we're talking about seems so polarizing or so radically different than your worldview, I just encourage you, like, it's not far off. Read the Bible, and he will renew your mind. He will clean your slate, and you will be able to, even if you were a porn star or something like that, like where you do not feel any emotional tie in sex, that can be renewed. And that is, we've seen crazy testimonies on that, where God can completely renew your mind and change the way you see sex to be exactly and align it the way he's intended it. And
I think just to sum it up is just like, put God first and everything else will come after.
Yep.
Chase after his heart and everything else will come after.
Yep.
And he'll make sure he'll be in charge of aligning you.
Yeah.
And you don't got to worry about a single thing.
Totally. I like it. Well, Kaylee, thanks for joining.
Thank you for
Yes,
having
thanks
me.
for
It's been
being
so
here.
fun.
Yay!
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. I dropped a lot of wisdom there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I think it's
So
good
did you?
too. I think, well, I know there are females in the audience, so I think it's probably nice that they can be heard and appreciated as well, because
Yeah.
it's hard to think as men on the female.
I'm a
side of
girl's
things.
girl always, so.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you guys for watching episode 5 and 6.
Yes.
To the next one.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good night, everybody. We're going to bed.
Totally.
Good
We're
night.
not even packing this stuff up. Just kidding.
Bedtime.
Bedtime.
And good night.
And scene.